Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beefloaf. This show is being powered by From the 108 and FromThe108.com, where you can get all of our content top to bottom, blogs, podcasts, and videos, including the world-famous Sunday Soak. You can also get all of our merch there as well, including our infamous Wave Sucks and hashtag 108 in Garb. This show is powered by you, the loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely do super chats. That's how we get paid. That's how we continue to make the content that you know and love. Tonight's guest, and you can see him now, he's the host of the CHGO White Sox podcast, as well as CHGO Bets. He's also a grad of St. Xavier University, where he claims he knew both Mike Rankin and Colleen from the TV commercial. But there's only photographic evidence of one of those being true. Sean Anderson, welcome to the Au Jus, my friend.
I never claimed to know that woman. I do not know that woman.
You don't know that woman?
No. I mean, I think I was there for like a year when she was there. I think she was from my parish. So like okay. She went to Maris, so I kind of just, you know everybody in the neighborhood. You figure it out. When someone's a YouTuber who's very famous in your community, you understand. You
have a connection. So you even if you don't know them, you claim to. This is like the Catholic school thing, because like right. I obviously I was a Catholic leaguer. I went to De La Salle myself, but when I went to college, I actually went to a small university too. I went to what's called Dominican University in River Forest. But when I went there, it was called Rosary College. And they were doing this big change because Rosary College at one point had been an all-girls school and then changed over the years. They were doing an ad campaign. And your boy, the Beefloaf, when I was a freshman, I was on a billboard right off of I-290 as part of the ad campaign. Long hair flowing. They had a photo shoot for us and everything. It was absolutely amazing. Before we get into some photos? Stuff, I've got it somewhere. I'll put it up on the internet. I'll get it out there. Let me get a drink.
You didn't need to waste it today on your Josh Nelson matchup because you sweep the floor with that one. Mercy.
Nope. We'll get into that in a second. Yeah. Baloney gives us a drink and he says Tusk. So he said there's the Sean Anderson fans are out there already. So thanks, Baloney.
Tusk.
Yeah, the matchup today with Nelson, he wanted to go at it. He's like, let's just push this thing and get a lot of votes. And my daughter, she's asking, my daughter's 13. She's like, Daddy, you're going to win this matchup against Josh. She knows Josh well, you know. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, I'm going to beat Josh by 16 points. And I think I'm up like 20 points right now or something like that. So I'm almost right there with where I'm at with them. So
yeah, I mean, 61.8 to 38.2. So right now you're beating him worse than he beat me. I think I still finished around 39%. So we're just on if Josh can beat my total.
That's right. Yumper, thank you. He says salute. Appreciate you.
What a nice guy Yumper is too.
I mean, Yumper's the best.
I'm not Jewish, but what a mensch.
He's a beautiful human being. Sean, I want to get into a little bit of stuff with you. We're going to spray to all fields here. First off, obviously, this crowd knows you for hosting CHGO White Sox podcast. There's a lot of big fans of that show in here, including yours truly. I become the biggest fan when it's during the season and I'm half in the bag and I come back to see you guys doing the post game. I have aborted ever watching Chuck and Ozzy. I watch you guys. I want to see you and Herbie talking about the game right afterwards. So just to let you know, I've jumped ship and I lock in. Now, sometimes I get a little belligerent in the comments and you guys have to bat me down. That's fine. Okay. I'm an old man. I'm drinking. So I appreciate you though.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's the most fun part of this job, and I'm so excited to do that again. And I mean, you see the ratings for Chuck and Ozzy on the post game and how great they were. But I mean, still, we were very proud of our first year numbers. So I think it's just more of a hat tip to Sox fans because that year was dog shit. And still, there was people each and every night when they were winning series. There were 100 more people in there. So I mean, if this team wins, they will get supported. It's very weird, I know. If a team is good, people actually want to latch on to that community and prop themselves up or whatever. Like that's when all the fans come out of the woodwork. So spending money, I think, actually helps baseball teams.
And helps the surrounding content as well.
And of course, the guy they spent money on too, I hate. So. It's like, oh, great, send it to me about all the fucking guys.
Fine. Jeff, thank you for the drink. He says, hello, I'll appreciate you.
What up, Jeff? And that's a new face, too.
I wanted to get into, you're also doing a gambling show. You do a gambling show on there with Cody. And the reason why I know is I haven't caught a lot of it, but I know you reached out just asking some gambling questions because Teresi and I used to gamble very seriously. We don't really anymore, but we have some kind of webs. Like we've done Sam Panianovich's chicken dinner show or whatever. Here's what I want to ask you about doing a gambling show. Okay, I understand how to win. Let's say in theory, right now, I could probably still win in reality, but how do you make it entertaining for people? I have a hard time with the make gambling entertaining because I feel like everyone tries to do it, but it's extremely difficult. What's your approach at this point?
I don't know, honestly. After a year, I think it's just win, baby. We got the Al Davis mentality. I am trying to grind out as many wins as possible, and I have been trying to bet straights only, Beef. We're avoiding the parlay.
I know you're out of the parlay game.
We're avoiding the boosts, right? We're just going on, I think this team will do X. And guess what? I've had my worst betting month in the past entire life. It's been horrible. I have a win percent around 28% on straights.
No.
I don't.
You're not betting big money line underdogs or something where it's like it seems reasonable with 28%.
Like the Gonzaga game yesterday. The bad beat. Of course, I was on Gonzaga. I had them -3.5. I was toying with taking them on the money line at -120, but no, that'd be stupid. Let's take the points. So yeah, it just seems like I'm a fade god. I have all the right thoughts and everything, but it's just on the team to lose. The first thing that I ever tried to do was my own podcast. I wanted to step outside of my box to be creative. And this is right when sports gambling started to be legalized. And I wanted to do 50 cents because that was the lowest you could bet on FanDuel. And that's who I was using at the time to $50,000, right? This grand idea.
Round it up. Yeah.
And now, looking all around the betting landscape, like I don't think there was a ton of podcasts like that. But this apparently is like everyone's whole shtick on TikTok now. So it's like, oh, great. So it seems like the one idea is I'm going to take $5 and make it a big amount of money. And that usually doesn't work, friends, because you're probably going to lose.
Usually goes to zero. There used to be in the old days of online poker, because I'm a longtime gambler. I was a better sports bettor than poker player, although I was a winning poker player, but like small stakes. There were professionals that would do those challenges. They would do $1 or $5 like that, and they would try to run it up, play these real small games, and kind of like figure it out. And it's interesting to watch when someone gets going on it, but it usually goes to zero fast. Like it's just the law of large numbers. It kicks you out,
I was in your favorite place, Vegas, for the first time in October, and I'm sitting there. Oh, dude! Oh, what a place! And I didn't even take full advantage of the sports gambling side because I was with the lady, so we were playing more machines and stuff.
Dude, I love machines, love video poker, love all that stuff.
First thing I sit down is $5 video game poker, and I'm just $5 a hand. I put $40 in, and it's like, oh, I get down to 20. Oh, here's up to 45, and I start getting on a little bit of a roll, and I up the ante size, and then it's gone. And it's just like, how did this happen? I'm doing the same rules. I'm following the same thing over and over again. And it's just, and that's gambling for you. I don't know how to make it entertaining because a lot of people lose money. And that's why I also have stock in DraftKings because I think that's probably the better way to make money with that company.
Be on the other side of the counter there.
Right. Instead of depositing $10 into my account, I'm just going to buy $10 in stock or, whatever. Deposit $10 in my stock fund.
Singer Sox with the drink. He says, love CHGO, exclamation point. He says, but still F Goose Island. Let's get into that right now, Sean. You and thank you for the drink, Singer Sox.
Thank you. And hey, he torched my guy Alex Reed today. Poor Alex.
He did. Yeah, that was a surprising difference. I thought that would be a lot closer, to be honest with you. I don't know why Singer Sox has captured the hearts of people. Like maybe he had an Evan Stone cameo. Maybe that was it. Pushed him up ahead. I'm not sure, but
I don't know if you noticed this because you host this show. I guess Teresi hosts the other show.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. So, but like it seems like you're kind of maybe the planner. Like you're sending out rundowns, right?
Correct. I'm the guy who does it. Yeah.
I'm a little bit of the planner on the CHGO show, and it seems like Alex, especially with that group, is kind of the planner. So I really think the planners always just are seen as the bad guys because they're usually like trying to get people together and actually do shit. And Senior Sox is the fun one. So it's really just the fun uncle versus like the dad here, and the dad's getting smoked.
That's a good call. If I meet up against Teresi, if I happen to match up with him, he's the fun one. He's considered the fun one. I'm the a-hole. That's the way that's going to ride out there for sure. But to ask you about the Goose Island partnership, how's it going? How are you guys doing with the new Goose Island partnership? It's only a couple months old, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, a couple months old, and with baseball not going on, we're not the focus right now to be working with Goose. Like we're focusing more on Blackhawks, and they had a couple events like at the stadium, which was really cool at the Goose Island Lounge. And then we did some bowl stuff as well, some bear stuff around the trades and all that. But upcoming like opening day, we're trying to be CHGO Cubs on the north side at a bar doing an opening day game, and hopefully we'll be on the south side somewhere doing the same thing. So I know Goose is going to be a part of that, and hopefully we're just able to kind of hit the town a little bit more. I mean, it's very exciting. I mean, having Goose on is great, and it's just more about, I think, getting those events under our belts, and I think we'll probably pick up steam from there. But we just haven't worked with them a ton, at least the baseball side.
Yeah, for sure. No, we really enjoyed working with them the years that we had partnerships with them, and we did live events and remotes and things like that as well. They were great to work with. They really were open. Times we never got the don't do that kind of thing. So they're awesome to work with. But I want to let you know that you guys getting that sponsorship is possibly the best thing that's ever happened to the 108ers. And let me explain why this is. Anytime you lose a sponsor, and we kind of already lost a sponsor when Goose was out of Sox Park, that thing kind of became not as tight as it was. We still were doing a little bit of stuff together, but not that much. We kind of felt that the thing was coming out. But the finality of you guys having Goose, it lit a fire under my Sox Summer's ass. And he went out and sold our content, and we landed three new sponsors. We got a new podcast sponsor. We have Lawrence's Fish and Shrimp, who is a podcast sponsor now with Mazda of Orland, who's been a podcast sponsor. He landed a second sponsor for the 108 Tourney, which is our G Group Dreamtown Realty in Chicago. And then we have a sponsor we haven't announced yet for the Sunday Soak. And all of that was because he was upset that, like, man, Goose left us at the altar right there. So if we have another situation like this, Sean, I'm going to reach out to you and Herbie and try to put the bug in your ear to get my man pissed off so he'll be motivated, because it's the best thing for our group.
Hey, look at Michael Jordan. Look what it did for him. I know a ton about spite. I feel very motivated by spite. If you spite me, I definitely have it pinned somewhere on a bulletin board. So no, I love that for my Sox Summer, and that's why I haven't stole the Florida shirt yet, because I know that I would end up in the Chicago River if I did that to my Sox Summer. So
yeah, there's lines you don't want to cross. That's
no. So no, he took that personally, and good on my Sox Summer, because hey, even getting Goose for you guys. I mean, like you were saying, what, you guys been doing this for 5 years, and I mean, we're so excited to get Goose, and we have like a sales team, and like it's you three guys, and you guys got Goose Island, Chicago's beer since 1988. There's a little bit of an ad read for you. But I mean, that's incredible. Like that's awesome, and I mean, that just kind of speaks to the content.
I appreciate that, Sean. Sometimes we're just right place, right time, and if we can make good on this for as long as we could, no. But I'm glad you guys.
It helps that they were next door neighbors to the 108.
Didn't hurt, right? Well, I mean, I wish you guys a lot of luck with that partnership there. I'm sure it'll be great. They're awesome to work with. Let me get to this drink. Joey P. He says, "Cheers, boys. Cheers, Joey."
How'd Joey do today? I saw he was a 7th seed.
Yeah, he was down quite a bit. He had Summer George. Summer George is a tough out. So that's a tough matchup. You're pretty happy you got to the second round kind of situation there.
Yeah, and I mean, he's in Texas. You got Celeste in DC. So I mean, we're widespread.
We got that's right. You got people absolutely.
Willie P is shortening the West Coast range though.
San Diego, but he's coming back. He's coming home.
Right.
So it's all right there. Wanted to get into it with you a little bit about content. I put a thread out here, and I'm going to put a picture up here on the screen. I had a tweet that started a sort of a longer thread, and the tweet for the podcast listeners: the barrier to entry for creating content is nearly zero. I tweeted, create a Substack, open up WordPress, record with Anchor, and fucking go. You don't really need an opportunity to just make your own. And part of my point here was, I see people, so-and-so gave me this opportunity. So-and-so gave me that. Oh, this person, no one's looking for me or whatever. Absolutely no one in their mom was looking for the 3108ers. Nobody would ever give us any opportunity to do anything just out of the clear blue on Twitter or whatever. We made our own thing. And my point of this was, everyone can make their own thing. It's just up to you then from beyond that to make it. So, Sean, what do you think about barriers to entry as a start, a window into this content discussion?
Well, I just love you for promoting the message, because I feel like a lot of my tweets, like I worry about putting stuff out, like anything, tweets, articles, videos, whatever. I have very much fear about creating content. So just seeing positivity about that is very good. But it's 100% right. Like, I mean, I started from St. Xavier, where you're probably going to a commuter college because you saw it on a White Sox commercial. Like, there's not a lot of reasons outside of being a nurse to go to St. Xavier University. Like, I didn't go to a Big Ten school. Like, I hear all of the people that went to Big Ten schools at CHGO, and I was like, I don't have that education at all. But I from college, I went out and just started doing podcasting, and I started trying to get my professional ability up to the level I could, work my way up at 670 Score. And then, this thing came out of nowhere in CHGO, and also Locked On Sox happened too with thanks to Herb Tanny. But you're 100% right. I mean, there's 24 White Sox podcasts. I went out and count. Those are the current active ones, the ones that haven't been dead for about a year. And it just kind of shows you, like, you do have your own voice, and you don't have to be something very specific. You don't have to be the best researcher, whatever. You just have to be yourself and unique. And you really can't find yourself unless you're doing it, right? Like, I mean, you've been doing it for 5 years, and what 10,000 hours will make you an expert. And it's
the Malcolm Gladwell thing. Yeah.
I've been doing this since 2017 in college radio and whatever. And it's not easy. It's very weird. It's tough, but like, you just got to do it. And thankfully I'm forced to do it 5 days a week, because if not, I'd probably like cower and not do it at all. Like it's scary. It's weird to put your thoughts out there and hope that someone will latch onto it. But you got to do it for someone to actually latch onto it,
Yeah, you make a great point there about the flight miles, and about not being scared to get out there and create something and make your own content. And you also mentioned your voice, and this is something Sam Panayonovich has told Trezy and I. We've been on his Chicken Dinner podcast. He's been on the 108 podcast. But what he means by that, though, is everyone who starts doing something, you start off sounding like someone who you listen to, someone who you're emulating, and you've got to break through that. You've got to shoot right through that and become you on the microphone, or you in the blog. And we've been doing the podcast. It's almost 5 years. We had the blog for 7 years. But it just takes a lot of reps. When we first started the podcast, we sucked. And it was a good thing we did 3-hour podcasts. Not for the listeners. It was good for us because we needed the flight miles. We were not doing this sort of thing. Now we feel comfortable. I sent you a detailed agenda, and you commented that's something that we should do, and it's something I've said a lot on the internet. People, you need to be a little more organized when you're doing these things. But truthfully, Trezy, My Sox Summer, and I could totally recreate for 90 minutes without anything, and we would be fine. But we've done hundreds, maybe 1,000 hours of podcast together, so it takes time to get to that point.
Well, and what voice do you know? I mean, bringing up Sammy's point, do you remember who you were trying to emulate when you first started? Like, did you have a voice that you were trying to vibe off of?
That's a good question. I would say from a blogging analysis standpoint, I think I follow like Joe Sheehan quite a bit. Like if you read Joe Sheehan's stuff, he's a much better writer than I am. But if you take kind of the like ham-fisted analysis that I'm willing to do, and some of the risky stuff I'm willing to try in a blog, that like, can we make this work? That's probably my path there. From a voice standpoint, that's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I'll think about that and get back to you on it.
I have mine. I first started off doing an NBA podcast.
Okay.
So the two voices were Bill Simmons, just because I was like, he's such a common man. Everybody can relate to Bill Simmons.
Right.
So I was trying to be relatable like that. But like, the one thing that you guys are like, I'm always impressed with the old heads, is like, you guys can quote movies and TV shows and whatever. Like, it's your job. Like, that stuff goes all over my head. I saw Rocky or Creed 3 on Sunday. I couldn't tell you a fucking line from it. And maybe that speaks more to the movie. But like, it's something that just amazes me. And then I also tried to emulate Dan Bernstein. And I just took that as, if anyone criticizes me, I'm going to attack you and be loud and screaming. So the early days, Sean Anderson was definitely a loose cannon. It was definitely a little bit too aggressive. And I'm glad I've calmed down and found my actual voice.
But there it's good to have a little bit of that. You're right. Breaking through kind of what you're initially emulating and becoming you is totally the bet. Let me get to a drink here. I appreciate you. Thank you for that drink.
Thank you, /Poppy.
Josh Nelson says, I totally regret convincing Treasy to launch the podcast. What a jerk. He did actually doing the blog and being knuckleheads. He actually pushed us into that. And then he also says, it's a funny story, kind of a particular
you
subject.
You are cutting out a little bit.
Am I? Okay. I had switched chords heading into this podcast. I was hoping that would help me work a little bit.
Yeah.
You have me back yet? Can you hear me or no?
I do have you back. You started going to the Josh comments and it kind of cut out a little bit.
Oh, okay. That's okay. People could see him on screen and basically he just said he regrets helping us, convincing us to launch a podcast. He's a jerk. So that's the bottom line there. But I wanted to, as far as creating content, is consistency. Tell me why consistency is important and how to achieve it, Sean.
Well, I mean, I was, again, forced kind of to do the consistency because like Locked On Sox was already 5 days a week. And then CHGO, that was the same thing. We went to 5 days a week. So it's kind of forced consistency. But even when I was back in college, like we built a YouTube channel that had 17,000 subscribers. And we were doing it 5 days a week, or not 5 days a week. We were doing it just every Friday, basically. And we had the podcast posted and we just were posting on YouTube. We weren't doing blogs or anything like that. It was all just through YouTube, all, through whatever, our own videos that we made, through the algorithm propping us up. And it's just about that consistency. If you're continuing to create content, the algorithms will reward you at some point. And two, like, the only way you're going to ever build a community, the only way you're ever going to have people visiting you in the 108 is letting people know, like, hey, we're here. Hey, it's the 108. Hey, it's the 108. Hey, here's the 108 tourney. Here's the 108 podcast. Here's the 108 podcast. Right. Like, you guys are like, I don't know any other section that has a podcast or a group. Right. Because you guys are consistently putting yourself out there. And it doesn't have to be, Twitter on or consistency on all platforms. Like, I'm really bad at being consistent on Twitter. I would want to post more on TikTok. But you just got to post somewhere and hopefully people will find you and that will grow. So yeah, I mean, it is a little bit different. Like, consistency is still tough. Cause I feel like I got to be a little bit more consistent with this being a startup. But yeah, absolutely. Like, if you're going to start creating, you just can't like create and be like, oh, I'll get back to this in a month. Oh, I'll get back to this in like 3 months, because you'll never get back to it. You'll never start building an actual community because people won't know you're there.
Right. No, that's exactly right. It's funny too. You might feel like you're annoying people. Like, it's going to feel annoying to you to be that pushy and consistent and always be there. And also is important too. And you guys do in CHGO, you're there at a certain time. You're streaming at a certain time each day. Mm-hmm. And we do that with the 108 podcast, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. That's where we're going to be. From that perspective too. I mean,
yeah, you cut out again there, Beef.
Did I? Yeah. Did I? Sorry about that.
Like a great point.
I was saying that's how people know to find you, being in the same spot all the time. Let me get a drink from Chuck. Thanks, Chuck. Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, hey, people used to watch their TV shows because they knew it was on at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Yeah, that's right. Seinfeld's going to be on, or Dallas way back in the day.
Hey. That's Merck's favorite show.
All right, let's talk a little creativity. So you had asked me the question, like, how do you, let's talk about how you get creative. How do you get into the creative zone? So let me ask you, how do you get yourself into a spot where you're going to be creative? Is it stimulation? You want to listen to something, watch something? How does it work?
I wasn't sure. I just wanted to kind of spark that for you, because I was asked a question by the great Vinny Duber before a show. We were prepping. Okay. And I wasn't really sure what to talk about. I was throwing ideas out there, news topics. I started looking on Twitter, and he was like, stop looking at the computer. What do you want to talk about? And that question pissed me off. I was like, what are you talking about? We talk about the White Sox every day. I want to talk about the White Sox. But like, he's totally right. Like, it's, again, like, whatever I'm going to be able to talk about is going to lead the conversation. It's going to lead the entire show. And maybe it goes somewhere certain, maybe it doesn't. And then we move on. But it is like, it's kind of paralysis, because you're like, all right, I have to talk about the White Sox for an hour today. And it's like, well, I don't want to waste too much, and I want to make sure that I get everything that's timely. And it is tough to be creative because you just want to do the day justice. But it's like,
Right.
if we step out of this box, like, will people tune in because it's not the most up-to-date stuff? I struggle to be creative. And you talk about, posting risky blog posts, but you're doing it. You're posting something that is a little bit risky. I always feel like I am posting the safest stuff possible. So it is, and it frustrates me because I'm like, I used to be creative. I don't know if it's killed by the pandemic or not, but it's like, I know so much about the White Sox. All we do is study the White Sox. Yeah. And it's like, all right, how do I step outside of this box? And I really don't know. And I know you guys, again, can quote movies like crazy. So I don't know if it's just that, all this creativity from a 2-hour movie that's helping prop up the creativity.
Yeah, I think Vinny's kind of, yeah, that's right. I mean, I think Vinny's kind of right because you step out of the domain you're in. I think that's one of the keys. Go do something else, something that interests you. Could be anything. Could be a long walk. Could be read a book, watch a movie, listen to an album, wherever. And that's kind of where you're going to strike yourself back with, oh, this applies to that. How can I make a connection here that my listener, that my watcher is going to understand? A lot of the people watching this stuff don't understand the White Sox at the level you do, Sean. You have to remember that sometimes you got to connect the points for them. And so like, that's what we work to try to do on our podcast. It's like, let's make a nice connection here, a nice analogy where everyone can get this real cleanly, this point about something. And so a lot of times it's step out of that domain. Think about things that you understand otherwise, or you're interested in otherwise, and sweep them kind of back in there is the way I would think about it.
Yeah. And I think we're going to do something fun tomorrow or Wednesday where we're going to be drafting our fantasy teams for our AL only fantasy teams.
Oh, nice.
So we'll have, a starting pitcher, position players, and it'll be Herb, Vinny, me, and then our producer, Steven. So, we'll just talking about the AL, hopefully we'll get that up a bit as well. And like, that's the thing is Herb, my favorite conversations are just talking about the entire MLB, and Herb saying that Ahmed Rosario is better than Tim Anderson last year, and that his most recent one is that Pablo Lopez, and this is after he bagged the Arias trade, I'm pretty sure, that Pablo Lopez is just as good as Lance Lynn.
I'm not seeing that either.
Head was going to explode. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, Beef, let's go to the stats here, Beef. 14 players since 2019 have an F WAR starters above 13 WAR. So 14 starters since 2019 have an F WAR above 13. 2 of them are White Sox. Can you name those players?
Well, Lynn's one of them for sure. I mean, I want to say it's Giolito. Because he had a couple big years, right?
He's at 14th. He's at 13, but he's with just under Alcantara, who's at 13.1, and Max Fried, who's at 13.2. So it's just like thinking about that. I was thinking there was a cut from the Eric Kratz thing. He was asking Lance Lynn, is he underrated? And I was just trying to put that in perspective. Like, is he underrated? And I was like, well, shit, maybe Lucas Giolito's underrated because he had a really bad 2022. Don't get me wrong. But also, there's a clear point. He lifted too much, was a psycho in the offseason, threw off his mechanics, was way too overweight, and then hurt himself. And that's why he had a bad 2022. Like, I don't know. Like this, I found that stat and I got really more excited about Gio's 2023 just because I think he might be healthy.
It's an interesting stat, too, because people would think Cease. But Cease has only been really good for that 1 year. Kind of, he was decent in 2021 and downright bad in 2020 and 2019. Like, he was a bad starter those years. We have always thought of him as the Cy Young guy, but it's only been that 1 year where he is.
Yeah, I mean, even 2021. I mean, after his first 4 starts, I was like, should they send this guy down to Charlotte? Like, he had a first pitch strike rate early in 2021 that was like historically bad. It was like 36%. Like, he couldn't throw a strike for the first pitch. It was ridiculous. And he still struggles with that. We saw a stat yesterday in full counts, 52 walks, 52 strikeouts, 48 walks. If you want to see where the strikeouts are going to go or how he's going to get deeper into games, he's just got to end it on full counts. Like, he just can't allow 48 fucking walks.
I thought we were starting to see a little movement on Cease where he was working towards getting some hitters out earlier in counts, but I don't know. It may be fool's gold in the second half of the year that I thought I saw that. Like, he needs it. He needs it. If he ever wants to throw 200 innings, he needs to become that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, 165, then 184. I mean, he's getting close. hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the White Sox now, quickly, and specifically Andrew Vaughn. I mean, this is the reason why everyone's here to watch the show, to have you rip me to shreds. So,
oh, you cut out right when you're asking the question.
Oh, did I? Am I back yet? You got me back?
Yeah, you're back.
You got me back yet, Sean? Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. You're a noted Stan. I have some questions about Andrew Vaughn. The first things first, I had Josh Nelson on here. Josh Nelson's point about Andrew Vaughn, his concern was with the slider. Sean, tear that thought to shreds.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the reason I rolled there was because I rewatched the clip that I put on Twitter that started the whole Josh and I slider thing, where he's sending me baseball savants, the link to baseball savant. Thank you, Josh. I
couldn't find
a White Sox podcast for 2 years. I didn't know where baseballsavant.com was, or whatever the fuck that is. But with beef, you threw me off now. So the slider I'm a little bit less worried about. Like, I am now concerned about the health, right? Obviously, like, that's the one worry I have for him. Yeah. And now that he's already dealing with lower back injuries or lower back issues, he said he's fine, taking grounders and everything. I hope he'll be fine. If he's not healthy, that's the biggest issue. But again, like, you look at the clubhouse, you look at the environments that he's been in. I understand your concerns about him possibly being too small, maybe not athletic enough. I think he's probably more of a short-term athletic guy rather than these long sprints, these long bursts. Like, I think he's a short-term athlete. Mm-hmm. He's very good at rotating his hips. He's very good at exploding. We see that with the exit velocities. First base, you don't need a ton of range, right? He's got a decent arm as well. Again, it's a quick motion. I was really good at running 100 yards in football pads, but then you extend that to 200 yards, and I'm probably the last person, right? It's
sure.
It's just that little bit of distance that really separates it. So I do think that the athletic concerns are there, because if he is that small and he's not able to play the outfield, like that obviously limits his ability, that limits his flexibility, and obviously shows that he's kind of a limited athlete. But again, like, you could be a limited athlete and play first base. It's just if you can hit the baseball. And he can hit the hell out of fastballs. And the one thing that was really exciting that I posted in that thread recently is it seems with this new stance where he's got his hands up a little bit more, and he's a little less moving of the bat. Like, he's calmed everything down, and it seems like he's got checkpoints, like 4 checkpoints that he's doing, and he's just then letting it unload. And what was really promising on fastballs, especially high fastballs in the zone, he started hitting them further. He started getting a cleaner launch angle. The distance was about 40 feet on an average. So instead of hitting it like 282, he was hitting it around 303 or something like that. Okay. So I think it is exciting, some of the changes that he made. And like, the point that Josh brought up originally was Gordon being an elite college hitter, and then struggling as he got later on into his career. I just think Andrew, with the entire environment, Tony La Russa as his manager, Frank Minakino, fuck it, he's a 300 hitter. He's not a home run hitter. Not really having a guy. Like, we hear the pitcher group being really tight, right? Like Dylan, Lance, Lucas, all being tight. But like, who's this guy in the infield? Like, it's him and Gavin Sheets. Like, that's not a really guy that you can really bounce stuff off of. You hear him talk about Jose Abreu. He's got respect for Jose Abreu, but it doesn't seem like Jose Abreu was like sharing a ton. And I don't know if they really could with the language barrier.
I was going to say, there's a language barrier. They're 10 years apart in age. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yasmani's an asshole. No, not really, but like, I mean, it doesn't seem like Yasmani Grandal is going to be really, really giving, right? So like, I wonder if he didn't have a veteran voice that he could bounce things off of and grow as a hitter. And that's why I'm excited about Chris Johnson. We haven't heard a ton about Chris Johnson so far through the spring training. That's one thing I've been surprised about. I haven't seen any articles about that. Like, I thought the hitting coach would be a little bit more of a story. But he talked about killing fastballs. Like, he talked about, we are going to go up there, and that's the mentality that I want these White Sox hitters to have, is see the fastball, kill the fastball. And if Andrew Vaughn can improve on the fastball, I'm not really worried about the slider, because he is a guy where I think it's comparable. His top end is Vlad Guerrero Jr. Just because, again, smaller guy, bigger weight. I know, like, he's different hitters. You know,
he doesn't have the ass that, if he had the ass that Vlad had, then I would have a little more confidence.
But I think that, again, I think he just needs a little bit more help here. Again, like he wasn't a left fielder, and he's played over 400 games in left field. He made his first start at first base in the minor leagues last year, or he made his first outfield start in Charlotte last year. Like, I mean, he never played the outfield before coming up to the White Sox in 2021. So I think there's a lot that was just on his plate, and I do think that hopefully with a fresh start in the clubhouse, that will lead to more success, because I think that he's fixing the swing that is, got him drafted third overall. And I think that the swing is tailored a little bit better to crush fastballs.
Yeah. I mean, on the slider point, it was frustrating to watch him in the second half because they were spinning them sliders and they never walked him. Like, they were not afraid to go right at him in the second half of that season. It was a little frustrating. So I hope he does fix that enough where he can get off of it and then just smash fastballs, as you're suggesting here.
And I know the Vlad thing was pretty ridiculous. There was one thing though. So this is back. I had a thread back in 2021, and it kind of showed Vaughn hitting the ball in the air, and that was around August 5th. And we know around August 16th he was out in the outfield trying to field a Stanton fly ball, and dove, hurt his back, and his power was completely zapped. But around that time, Vaughn 2021, 15% home run to fly ball ratio. That was 72nd in the league. Vlad in 2019, his first year, 12.1%. That was 104th in the league. Hard hit percent, 49.6% for Vaughn. That was 22nd in the league. Vladdy in his first year, 38.7. That was 64th. And then 98.4 miles per hour, an average exit velocity on line drives off fastballs. That was 53rd. Vladdy was 93.2, which was 73rd. So like there were signs that just like Vaughn is an elite fastball hitter, the elite of the elite. That's what you need to do in Major League Baseball. Like, I mean, Aaron Judge, hit a ton of hanging sliders for home runs last year. He also can hit a fastball, and you really can't throw him one over the plate. And that's where Vaughn needs to get to, where he just can't be we're going to beat you with fastballs high, sliders low. Don't beat him with a fastball, and then I think everything else kind of opens up, because guys will try to throw sliders in counts they shouldn't, hang them, and he can kill those. We saw him hit so many clutch home runs. Scott Barlow, the one against Detroit as well, off hanging sliders. So off Soto, off hanging sliders. So like he can damage mistakes. It's just when a guy makes a perfect pitch, he's fucked. Which is fair.
Which is most
he's getting himself into right. But he's getting himself into those situations, I think, a little bit too much. Those pitcher counts rather than him attacking. And I think you got to attack on fastball counts. And I think that's the one thing that he's got to improve on.
Absolutely. And we talked a little bit. You talked briefly about the physicality. That's my concern, is the small size. And it's not just small size it's small size for him wearing down, which we've seen over the past couple of years. He's worn down a little bit. It's small size too for being able to leverage the power. Like, I looked at first baseman, and first baseman on these big, strong, hulking guys, he's not that guy. The smaller guys like him, like you talked about, it's the quick twitch is where they generate the power from. And so he's got to lean more on that. He doesn't have the long levers. He either has to get real strong, or maybe he is real strong in bursts. So what do you think about that part of it, the physicality sort of lacking for this type of slugger?
Yeah, I like the way that you brought that up. I really never thought about the size factor, so I just went to StatHead. Since 2000, players who are 6 feet tall or shorter, and I know that's a point of contention. Yeah. I tried to get Vinny to ask him, and he said that was offensive. Which I
you mean 5'8" Lurie and 6 foot Andrew Vaughn together? Deal with it.
Jesus Christ. The knees bent a little bit there for Vaughn.
He's clearly taller than Lurie. I mean, I'm just joking around, but still,
Well, I mean, it's going to be good that Leary's off the team coming in 2023, so then Vaughn doesn't have to be embarrassed by that. But this is since 2000, and players with at least 1,000 plate appearances under or 6 feet or shorter and 215 pounds or heavier, and that's what Vaughn's listed at. Again, we're not sure what his exact numbers are. But the thing that I found interesting, out of 83 hitters, only 40 of them had an OPS plus of 100 or higher. And there are some sluggers on here. Manny Ramirez, Prince Fielder, Mags, Bobby Abreu, Robinson Cano, Rafael Devers, Kyle Schwarber. Like, you can be a smaller stature player and be very good. So, I mean, the thing that I really like about Vaughn was his zone contact. Since 2021, he's got basically 90% and there's 26 players that have a 90% zone contact or higher. And like, the leaders on that are like Mookie Betts. And you kind of just see like he's smaller stature, but it's just all about that quick speed.
He's got the quick twitch. He's right. Yeah. He's a real good athlete. Like we saw him playing second base last night, and it's like no problem, right?
Yeah. Right. And hey, Tony said Vaughn could play it. So I mean maybe that's a sign. But I really am not that worried about him, just because he has proven that he can do it at every level. And I know that, Gordon Beckham did that as well, but Vaughn is one of these players that have, these 40 players through their first 1,000 plate appearances or longer have an OPS plus above 100. I do think that, again, like we look at the injuries in 2021, I don't think he's that player from late August to the end of October. You know what I'm saying? I think we can really write that year off. 2022, I don't really want to write that off because it's a little bit concerning, and I hope, his leg issues don't continue, and I hope the back injuries don't continue. But if he is healthy, I do think it's going to be huge for him, because you need to hit the ball hard to be good in Major League Baseball. He does that.
I mean, like,
right?
And he hits velocity. That's important too in this major league. So it's
not you're mean, and he's not able to hit anything like 92 below. Like, I mean, he can catch up to 97, and I think that as long as he's got a little bit better instruction, which we all thought the hitting coach was a problem, I think that could help Vaughn. But I want to know a little bit more about Chris Johnson and what he's bringing to the team, because we really haven't heard a lot about the hitting coach and the hitting department.
One avant-garde question before we get into expectations for Vaughn. Should he strike out more, Sean? I had the thought in my head, maybe he should strike out more because he maybe should be reaching for more power. And you mentioned the zone contact where he's ridiculously good. Like sometimes those guys are making too much contact on things where you would prefer them to get balls in the sweet spot and not hit everything.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question, because even in the thread, I brought up this swing decision stuff that Pitcher List is going through. It's a new stat that Scott Shue created, but it shows Vaughn's swing aggression and also his power. And you can see that later on in the year, I think around August, when they started pressing a little bit more, like we need to start hitting home runs, we need to start driving in runs, he started getting more aggressive. And he really struggled against sliders, and he really killed fastballs. His power skyrocketed, but then his aggression also skyrocketed, and we saw more strikeouts from him. I don't know. I always find the Frank Menachino comment, fuck it, hit 300 and the home runs will come, very odd, because he is so good at spraying everywhere. Like, I mean, he could just be a guy that hits 20 home runs to the right center, or 20 doubles to the right center gap, and 20 doubles to the left center gap. Like, I mean, he could be a gap just demon. But I don't know. I don't know what the instructions are. If he's going to be trying to kill fastballs, you'd assume he start pulling the ball more. I do think that you could start seeing more home runs from him, and maybe, they start trading home runs for strikeouts. But I would like to see him be a little bit more patient. I thought he was a better hitter in 2021, and we saw that entire team be more patient. I would like to see him get to about a 10 walk rate, because this is a guy that had an OBP of 500 in college. I mean, I know that's a ridiculous standard to set, but he's not stupid, like I don't think that he's like overly aggressive. Like I think that he could really work an account, and I think that he could be patient and wait for that fastball. So I would actually like to see more patience from Vaughn. I wouldn't like to see the aggression, because I think that he could be a 300 hitter, and I think that he could be really good at, spraying the ball to all fields. And then maybe, in hitters counts, when it's 2-0, 3-0, where the White Sox didn't do a lot of damage last year, maybe then he's honing in on that fastball. And that's where we start seeing the power. We start seeing the pull. We start seeing him kind of sell out a little bit more. So yeah, I think maybe he's a little bit more aggressive when he's not in 2 strike counts. I think that we could see that this year, and I think that could be beneficial. But his numbers kind of went up last year when he was a little bit more aggressive. So I think there could be an argument there for him to be a little bit more aggressive. But again, he struck out, I think, way too much for his player type last year. For what he's going to do. With regards to expectations, I took a look at the 10th place first baseman for qualified first baseman. I looked at both FWAR and WRC plus separately, so it could be separate players. So I'm going to give you the median over the last 5 full years. The median FWAR for first baseman is 2.7, and the median WRC plus for the number 10 first baseman qualified is 126. Are we over or under Andrew Vaughn for both of those in 2023? I don't know how good he is at defense. It's a weird thing to really. I mean, I don't know how it's going to really. Will it bring him down that much? I'm not sure.
Right.
You look at the Zips projections. The 50th percentile has him at 124 and a WAR of 2.2. With 28 doubles and 28 homers, I think we take that.
Yeah.
I don't think any White Sox fan would scoff at that. So I mean, that's what his projection is. So I think that's probably the baseline. But I mean, you even see some of these more aggressive projections. I think he can hit 30 doubles and 30 homers. And that's his 60th percentile projection. Even the 70th percentile has him at 31 and 32. And those are seasons of 138 OPS, 130 OPS, and a 3.2 and your 2.7 WAR. The most important thing will be the weighted runs created plus, will be the OPS plus, will be the homers, will be the doubles. Right. I don't care if the WAR is bad because he might be really ugly at first base. But we also saw Jose Abreu be kind of ugly at first base for the first couple of years of his career. And then he started kind of settling into that position.
Yeah, he was brutal actually his early, his early career on defense. Yeah,
it's first base. I know that Tim Anderson makes that job a little bit more difficult because he gets to a lot more balls and he's trying to make more plays than an average shortstop can. But as long as he can limit the damage, that's how limit the damage is Andrew Vaughn's first base plans this year at defense. But
just get off the bag and save it.
Right? Did you see Debo bag him? Debo said about Oscar Colas, it's a lot better than what we used to have. Like basically, like on defense. I'll find the exact quote. It was in Daryl's write up recently, and talking about Colas and his kid. And literally, Daryl's just like, oh, well, he's at a better starting place than some of the other guys we've had. So it's like, oh, okay.
They're not outfielders.
That's the thing is like, again, like I'm not shocked that Andrew Vaughn, noted first baseman, was bad in the outfield. Again, it's and they just kept doing it. It just felt like you got to give this kid mercy at some point, and they didn't. Yeah. They didn't let up. He hurt himself in 2021. No, that's not enough. Let's keep putting you back out there.
You're out there, kid.
He'll be at least more comfortable at first base, and I think he's going to be less prone to damage, hopefully.
I see Herb put in the comments, under for the WAR, over for the OPS plus, and you're kind of the same mind, Sean, that you think that's might be how it line up. For me, looking at it, if he registered a 2.7 F WAR and a 126 WRC plus, I'd be absolutely fine with that performance for the year. In fact, I think I agree with you guys. I think that the OPS plus or WRC plus might inch higher than that. And if the WAR is a little bit lower and you get 2.5 wins, I'm absolutely fine. That performance works for me.
Right. And again, it's just all about how he finishes, because, you see the finishing numbers of 91 and 111 for OPS plus the last 2 years. And it's just, that's not the type of hitter he was. Like he was limited by his legs, and hopefully he's not limited by his legs in 2023, because again, I think he'll be more comfortable. He'll find more shit out. He'll figure more shit out. And also they won't be playing against Pedro Grifol's, crazy game plans in Kansas City, like 19 times. Like they had the book on the entire AL Central had the book on the White Sox. And if the White Sox didn't show up, they were easy to beat and roll over, because it was the same game plan over and over again. Hopefully Pedro Grifol can game plan for the White Sox and make it a little bit easier for their hitters, because 2022 was just so ugly for a lot of players.
Tough watch. Let's close out with some White Sox talk here. So finish up. I'm intrigued with the White Sox bench, what it's going to look like. I know Seby Zavala's locked in, but there's 3 other spots. Sean, who are you putting in those spots and why?
We talked about this today, Vinny and I, and I was kind of surprised because I had a feeling that Romy would just be on this team. But we ended up coming with Leary, Sheets, and Hamilton being the other 3 outside of Grandal, Zavala, Vaughn, Andrus, Anderson, Moncada, Benintendi, Robert Jr., Colas, and Eloy. I do think that it seems pretty clear that Hanser Alberto and Leary Garcia are in a position battle. And it seems like Romy, having those 2 options, will probably be the odd man out. And I'm fine with that. I wasn't thrilled with Romy being our starting second baseman, because it felt like he needed a little bit more of seasoning. And I'm glad that he'll probably get that in Charlotte. Sheets, it's weird, the position of him and Colas, because they're both lefties. They both do damage against righties, and it seems like Colas kind of switches to a contact approach versus lefties. He's done that during spring. So it seems like he's a little bit suited to play against lefties a little bit more. And I wonder, like, what's going to happen to Sheets. But if Vaughn's going to be hindered a little bit by his back, and maybe they don't want to have Jose Abreu's example of playing every single day be the standard.
Yeah.
Maybe we see a lot more of Gavin Sheets at first base than I was expecting. So I think Leary's probably going to be the utility man. Sheets will be your first baseman and spell right field, and then Hamilton for his speed and defense. Because I mean, he brings something elite with his speed and defense, and really no one else in the organization has like those two skills like that to that level. So yeah, Romy odd man out, and I'd honestly be thrilled if Alberto beat out Leary, but that seems to be the one kind of toss up. And it whether you like Alberto, I like Alberto. They, it's all up to them, and they might want to stick with the guy they gave $15 million with. But even then, I brought this up. Like Leary, after Tony left, he played 70. He started 72 games out of 129 before Tony left, and then he started 4 out of 32.
All right.
So I mean, I don't know if he has the favor of the clubhouse anymore, and I feel like Grifol kind of said that as well. So the legend might be done.
His legend staying in Game 3. I was going to ask you. So a question about Hamilton. Do you think that Hamilton's a little bit neutralized by these bigger bags and the new base stealing rules? Like it kind of pushes up the guys who aren't as elite to have more elite skills in stealing bases. I wonder if that devalues Billy Hamilton a little bit. So I just want to ask you that question right there.
I mean, it is still a game of you have to be fast, and he is fast, and still the bigger bases will help him because
but it helps everyone though.
Right. I think you're right. I think Tim's going to steal 20 bags this year. You look at his efficiency. He knows when to pick his spots, how to pick his spots, and how to do it safely. The White Sox were great at that last year. I mean, they were around a 90% success rate last year going into August, and then it kind of fell off when they got a little bit more aggressive.
And also they lost their 2 best base stealers. They lost Tim and they lost Luis. I blogged about that. I said they should be running way more. They're too efficient. They could be scoring more runs if they're running more. And I was hoping Pedro actually does that this year and pushes some of these guys a little more. Well,
that's why I feel like Hamilton might be on this roster because, again, you don't have Engel. You need a defensive replacement late in games to drop balls in left field in Baltimore.
That's right.
and like even then, if Hamilton might not be that good, with stealing, he might not be that elite with stealing bags. I mean, even with the goofy extra inning rule, I mean, he will be valuable because you need the fastest guy to get home. And that's still, on sac flies, whatever, balls through the middle. You want the fastest guy there. So I think he just still brings an elite skill. And last year, I think over the past 2 years, he's like through the minors and major leagues, he's got like 20 stolen bags and 1 caught stealing. So, I mean, he's still been successful. Again, he's fast. So I like that.
It's definitely fast. My guy on this, there's some utility in him hitting left-handed pitching, and it's not something you would think the White Sox needed, but I think they need it now.
Yeah, again, like he's got a skill where Leary doesn't. Like Leary plays all around the diamond, but he doesn't do it well. He doesn't hit, left-handers or right-handers better than one or the other. Hanser Alberto, throughout his career, has been around a 750 OPS plus hitter versus left-handers. That's huge. That's extremely valuable. My worry though is, if he gets sent down, he could decline the minor league option, and then leave the organization. I think he's a better player than Leary Garcia. And, we've seen them pick Leary Garcia over better ball players before. So I'm not going to get excited about Hanser Alberto, but I think there's a chance.
I love it. Sean, thanks so much for bestowing your White Sox thoughts on Andrew Vaughn and the remaining position player bench spots, as well as talking some shop with me, a little content creation. Remember, we're not trying to be right on the show. We're just trying to understand. Do you have anything you would like to plug before you go?
We got the show going live on CHGO Sports YouTube channel, 4 p.m. We go Monday through Thursday live. We have a Sunday-only podcast, and that's about an hour long each and every day. And we are trying to give the best coverage to you for your White Sox needs on a daily basis. I know, again, there's 24 podcasts out there, so there's a lot of options. We think if you choose us. yeah, that's what we got. We got bets at 3 p.m. Still trying to figure out how that's going on and how I'm going to try to win money. I've tried this positive EV thing. I'll let you know about that after the show.
That's what we used to do. So I'll chat you up, and then we were arbitrage masters. That's what we did. Yes. So
I mean, I'll tell you about the website. But yeah, that's what I got going on. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers. So if you guys want to help us out, do that by March. I think we're like 2,000 away. So we're doing our best. We're covering all teams.
Awesome. And that link is actually in the podcast and also on YouTube. Make sure you hit that link, subscribe, turn on notifications for CHGO Sports. Sean, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. That was Sean Anderson. Next week's guest is Alex Rude. The last show Alex and I did was sort of like a jam band session, basically, where we just flowed for 45 minutes. We're going to do that again, but we're going to do that about White Sox season preview. So we're going to talk 2023 White Sox, me and Alex next week. We'll riff right here, 6 p.m. That's March 27th. Thanks again to Sean Anderson. Thanks to all the 108 families up in the YouTube comments. Thanks for letting me know when I was cutting out. I appreciate that. Appreciate you smashing the like button, commenting, of course, all the drinks and tips. We'll see you all next week. Love you.